Hello and welcome back to the KCC channel. I'm Rob and I hope you are having a wonderful day today. Today, we're jumping into some malicious compliance. Before we start, if you're new here, make sure to hit that subscribe button. It's completely free and you can always change your mind later. But if you stick around, there just might be some cookies in your near future. Alright, our first story today comes to us from IT Co-op, maternity wear. Let's jump right in. This happened several years ago. After onboarding a new job, I was told I could hire an assistant. The HR director, Kelly, handed me a stack of resumes, told me about a friend's daughter, and bumped Kat to the top of my interview list. Kat passed the tech test with high scores and interviewed well, so I hired her. Kat showed up to work on time, had a good attitude, performed well on assignments, and was generally a pleasant person all around. After probation, Kat was excited to tell me that her last raise was enough to get an apartment with her boyfriend. It was a couple months after her raise I started to notice Kelly spending an inordinate amount of time talking to Kat. The convo sounded personal and cordial, and Kelly was friends with Kat's mom, so I didn't think much about it. Until one day, Kelly barges in my office. "Did you know Kat moved into an apartment with her boyfriend?" I might have heard something about that. "Well, Kat is pregnant and her mom is devastated," and proceeds to fill me in on the details on Kat's personal life. Uncomfortably, I interrupt, acting like I have a lot going on. This really isn't any of my business. If there's something related to Kat's performance that we need to discuss, please fill me in, but as for me, Kat's doing a great job. A few months pass. Kat's baby bump is starting to show. Kelly is again in my office. "Kat is not in compliance with the dress code." Last staff meeting, Kelly handed out a dress code policy with a collage of various women's shoes and dresses and suits, presumably cut from fashion magazines, to assist us in determining what was acceptable from what was not. I picked up the policy and the clipart sheets with a stare reminiscent of Jack Nicholson's "I'm of a mind to make some Mookie" Batman Joker scene. Is she wearing something in the "not allowed" clippings? As I began to spread the clipart around my desk. "She isn't wearing maternity clothes," as Kelly points to the bullet about maternity clothes in the policy. Well, the policy clearly says maternity wear is allowed. Kat is clearly pregnant and she's wearing clothes, so you know what I mean when I say maternity clothes. Clothes from a maternity store. I told Kelly that I would talk to Kat, which I did. Kat filled me in that there was some drama with her mom not liking her boyfriend, that Kelly is involved, etc, etc. I just told her to read the policy and be sure she complies, and no matter what, to trust me. I had her back. The next day, Kelly is in my office telling me that Kat is again not in compliance with the dress code. At this point, Kelly knows I'm getting frustrated. "Okay, I'll talk to her again. This time, I want you present because I'm going to give her a formal warning and assign remedial training." I bring Kat into my office with Kelly present and formally read off my prepared statement, making it clear that it will go into her permanent file. "Kat, you were given a verbal warning yesterday to comply with this dress code. Because it is not clear to me what is or is not a violation of this policy, you are to report to the HR office 10 minutes early every morning for the next 2 weeks for dress code inspection. Report to me if HR finds your dress unfit. If you are found to be in violation of this policy and are unable to correct your dress before the start of the workday, your employment will be terminated." By the time I'm finished, Kat is tearing up and Kelly is staring at the floor, speechless. I dismiss Kat. I hope that this is the last I hear about this, because if I do, I'll fire her, as Kelly, speechless, walks out of my office. I told Kat not to worry about any of this. We have them where we want them. So for a week, Kat reported to me that her clothes were fine per HR inspection. At the beginning of the second week, she was chuckling. "Kelly told me that I look very nice today." Attitudes began to change and everyone was smiling. I got called to the red carpet by Jim, the CEO. He tried to keep a straight face as he recited what he heard was going on and asked me to cut the remedial training short because it was embarrassing the HR staff. Straight-faced, I said, "Well, Jim, if I stop the remedial training, I'll have to fire Kat." Company policy clearly states that failure to complete a formal remediation plan is immediate termination. It is very clear. There is zero tolerance. You can't fire a pregnant woman for what she wears. I'm asking, no, I'm telling you to stop. Stop following company policy? Laughing, he concedes. Okay, I am rescinding that ridiculous dress code policy effective immediately. So let me get this straight. Kelly was going around sharing an employee's personal information with another person in the workplace. Liability, holy crap. Okay, and I know there's stores that specifically sell quote-unquote maternity clothes, but isn't maternity clothes just clothes that somebody who is pregnant wears, regardless of where they get them from? OP, you're honestly a really good person. Somebody who's willing to stand up to the boss above you and be a very good boss yourself at the same time. Kat is honestly very lucky to have you as a supervisor. Our next story today comes to us from mbilaalch. If you don't agree with me, leave right now. Let's jump right in. Here I am again, folks, with another professional malicious compliance. In June of 2021, I joined a tech startup, last mile grocery and food delivery app, as a financial controller. I was told my task is to bring the gross profits into black within a year and before next round of investment and fundraising. The senior team comprised of me, group CFO, COO, and head of grocery. The CEO was stationed outside in another country. The CEO comes to the country within a month of my joining, but does not bother to meet me. I say, okay, no problem, keep your head down and do what you are tasked with. Within 2 months, I have the grips on operations and financials, and I have laid down my plan with the group CFO, and he agrees to it. I make some changes in my team and I get to working on fixing things. During October, one of our competitors raises $85 million in investment, and our CEO is irked. He comes again and starts an impromptu investment round. The conditions are better than before, so we get an offer of $50 million because our overall plan was a lot smaller and realistic than our competitor. The CEO rejects the offer. He needs an offer of at least $100 million to beat the competitor. Luckily, we got offered $200 million, but the CEO refuses, citing this is greater than what I need, and goes back without accepting anything. Come February, Group CFO suddenly quits, but I knew he quit since our funds were depleting rapidly and the economic conditions in the country and globally were getting worse. I have an emergency meeting with the COO and grocery head and tell them that we need to rationalize our expenses further, and this is the plan, according to which we will be profitable by June 2022. They agree to it and I get to work with my team. The CEO again does not talk to me, and the CFO post remains vacant despite me being next in line and eligible for it. Come March 2022, my plan is on track, and we are expecting profitability a month earlier in May 2022. I plan to take a week-long vacation and travel abroad with my spouse. In the third day of vacations, I get a text from COO that I need to come back as something has happened. I tell him I'll come back as planned and not to worry. I come back and find out that the supply chain team made an error and bought inventory $30 million more than planned for the festive season coming up in May. In my absence, the grocery head gave the go-ahead without consulting me, and the error was only identified once the vendor started fulfilling the order. This has shook our overall plan, and our cash funds are at bottom. Mr. CEO comes to know about this. I was the one to inform him, and he immediately comes down and started literally abusing me and other members of the team verbally. This is his first ever face-to-face meeting with me. I was quite taken aback by his rudeness and hurt as he put all blame on me, saying I am the CFO, when I was never appointed as such, so no payments or purchases were approved by me. They were being approved by COO and the head of grocery. This verbal abuse goes on for about a week, during which I had broken down twice in front of my wife, as I had never faced such horse crap before in my career, and I had worked really hard to bring the company where it was at that point. The CEO warns us that whoever is found guilty of negligence will be fired on the spot. This is where the malicious compliance begins. I prepared detailed documents pointing out my plan and who approved the extra purchase, and how I was consulted only after the error has occurred. I even prepared a plan to sell off the excess inventory and bring the money back in the fold. I try to reach him to explain, but he brushes me off every time, saying you cannot be right. After 7 days, the CEO calls us in office on a weekend. I arrive and head of grocery is there. They're arguing and it is getting heated up. It gets so heated up that the head of grocery shouts back and leaves, citing that he quits. As soon as he leaves, the CEO pounded his fist on the table and shouted, "If you don't agree with me, leave right now. Only I know how to run this company, and if you think I cannot work without you, think again." The moment I heard these words spewing out of his mouth, I switched to autopilot. I type in my resignation, email him right there, get up and say to him, "Please check your email, my notice starts now." I leave the building before he could respond. Immediately, I call up one of my ex-bosses and mentors and tell him I need to meet him. We meet. Within a week, we plan to start our own consultancy firm, and 6 months from then, our firm has started to grow. We're working on our startup, setting up another business, and managing top-tier clients. Then I get a message from that CEO through the COO after a few months of my leaving. "Hey, we need your help managing the books and finances. Our position is really bad." I simply say, "The CEO won't agree with what I have to do to fix the company, and I don't work with clients who don't agree with me." Jumping down to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Yerson Black. It says, "I just wonder how the CEO got to that position with his attitude and mindset. Is or was he some sort of trust fund millionaire? OP held on longer than I would have. I think I would have noped out when the CEO insisted on a certain dollar value of investment. That wasn't business, that was pecker measuring." OP responded to this one and said, "You guessed it, he's a big shot hedge fund manager in New York with millions to his name." The sad thing here is that OP put in a lot of time to try and bring the company back from the brink. You know, time, money, effort, sanity, all of that was wasted. At least in OP's new company and being a consultant, they can make all the decisions themselves, do things the way they want to do it, and run their company the way it should be run. Our next story today comes to us from hqxsenberg. Only authorized personnel. Let's jump right in. Background: I work for a kind of ISP doing in-house testing of systems to design new solutions for customers. This sometimes requires an active internet connection, which had to be activated by our airtime department as it could be quite expensive in theory. Only the accounting part is done by the airtime department. The actual activations is something we can do ourselves, but not allowed to do so without airtime consent. Previously, I had merely asked our local airtime team to activate a system for the duration of the test, then deactivate again once the test was completed. And this is where our story begins. A change from upper management meant that our local airtime department got cancelled, and all its functions were moved back to HQ in another country. This worked out okay for a short time, until someone in management brought in a new boss for the company's airtime department. Meet Power Boss, a new boss with little insight in how operations work, but with extreme desire to make sure every little rule is followed to the letter. Does not matter if it makes sense or not. I quickly started to get a massive dislike towards this boss. We have all sorts of little conflicts. Example 1. I file a request to have a system activated within the current week as we have a major, one of the biggest companies in the world, customer coming by to see the systems late in the following week. It takes time for the database to fill up once the system is activated, so it's important this is done in good time to allow for this. I hear nothing during the week, but assume all is okay. Until Monday morning, where I found out the system is not activated. For data to fill up, only airtime can do this portion of the activation. I called the airtime department and asked what is going on, why it has not been activated. Power Boss decided to take the activation out of the standard queue to show it to the team for an internal training how to do activations. I am of course furious at this point. Why they have not called me or informed me about this is a major problem. I insist they do this now. Power Boss informs me that it is his decision and he is okay with this. At this time, I kind of lose it and inform him politely but firmly that he has one job, and that is to ensure that systems get activated, and he best do that job. If not, I will have to take it to his superiors in order for the system to be activated ASAP. so it can be ready for presentation with the potential customer. System gets activated during that day, but the following day I learned from one of the upper management bosses that Power Boss had reached out to HR and threatened to file a personal harassment case against me. HR denied this though, as they saw no reason for it. I'm like, WTF? A harassment case over asking someone to do their job? Cue example 2 and the malicious compliance. I need an urgent activation of a system, and for this we, with the new system, have to file activation reports with all details. Quite tedious for something purely internal and temporary. Nonetheless, I do this and send it over. It gets rejected by Power Boss because it has not been signed by one of the VPs, who are the only ones authorized to activate a system for a customer with a write-off in the thousands of US dollars. Though it is kind of a theoretical thing, as the internal cost is virtually nothing. I try to argue that it is quite a lot of work to chase down a VP for a signature when it is a very limited time and purely internal. Power Boss denies this and says very firmly, only people on the list in the bottom of the activation form are allowed to approve this. Your name is not on this list, so you cannot approve. Talk to a VP. It takes time, but I chase down a VP in another country and get him to sign the document and get the system activated. A couple of weeks later, Power Boss is in our new call center in Asia, out to do a demonstration on how the systems work and what it looks like in real time. Turns out that Power Boss needs a system activated and calls in and requests this. By some stroke of absolute luck, I pick up the phone. Hello, I need system XX activated. Do you have a signed activation form? I don't need one. I am telling you to activate the system. According to yourself, all activations must have an activation form. Fine, I'm sending it in now. I do not see any signature on this form. It needs to be approved by a VP. But I am head of airtime. This is me writing these forms. I decide who can approve and who cannot. Your name is not listed on the form as one of the people who are allowed to approve. Clearly that's a mistake on the form. Just activate. Only authorized personnel can do this. Your name is not on the list. Fine. Then hangs up. My gosh, it felt good. Power Boss obviously complained to one of the VPs about this, but they merely shrugged and said that he himself had made the rules and the documents, that I was merely following the rules that he himself had set. Hilarious. OP added an edit onto the bottom of the story. It says, edit, it has been 5 to 6 years since that incident. I have been promoted, so the amount of interactions I have with Power Boss is extremely limited. When he does write to me requesting whatever, I simply ignore all his emails. I have made it a thing to never respond to any email he sends out, or if I do respond, I remove him from the trail. This seems to have worked quite well, as I have zero conflicts with him. Jumping to the comment section on this one, there's one from a user called Kaylane. It says, I approve of the edit to include more information that was given in a comment reply to someone, and it's also a delicious piece of malicious compliance. I can understand that rules are rules, and I'm mostly very stringent with regards to them myself, but I also know that sometimes it's a lot more efficient to be able to go outside the rules to get some temporary work done. OP responded to this comment and said this is very true. Sometimes rules must be rules, but also stop and think sometimes. Why are the rules in place, and does it always make sense? Does the rule help my workplace function better? Just not in my silo, but the company as a whole? I think many rules should be considered in a holistic view, and not just from an individual department's point of view. Could improve work efficiency in many companies. In the same company when I was fresh and just hired, we attended a meeting with the CEO at the time who was explaining new procedures. I politely asked if the new procedures were a good thing, as while it certainly did provide better workflow for tech department, it would create a massive workload for the accounting team. CEO response, why do you care? It's not your department. That totally miffed me. Yeah, I don't understand that one myself, because if something gets backed up in one department, it causes a backup in another related department, which sooner or later is going to back up and cause some trouble for that CEO. Let's be honest here though, the majority of us listening to this don't have the, berries to actually stand up to somebody higher up in a company. I think that's one of the reasons why we like these stories so much. because they go over the things that we would love to do, but would never actually do ourselves. Great work to all of the OPs. Check out all 3 OPs linked in the description down below. I thank you for watching. I hope you have a wonderful day, and we'll see you tomorrow.